The air at the Sky Garden, one of Manhattan's most exclusive terraces, smelled of peonies and impending rain. For Amelia Hayes, it was the scent of the future. At 32, as a partner in one of the city's most promising investment funds, she left nothing to chance, not the stock market, nor her wedding day. With a tablet in her hand, she walked past the flower arrangements, checking if the shade of blush pink of the roses matched the Pantone code she had sent to the florist exactly. Every detail was a testament to her love, meticulous, planned, and in her mind, infallible. On the other side of the city, Leo Vance, her fiancé, was laughing at a joke he had barely heard. He was at the Gilded Cage, a whiskey bar with leather armchairs as dark as the secrets they held. His colleagues from the investment bank had dragged him out for a last drink as a free man. Leo, with his million-dollar smile and a charm that could calm the most volatile markets, raised his glass. To Amelia, he toasted, and the men around him echoed the toast. To them, Leo was the man who had it all: a stellar career and a fiancée who was not only beautiful, but a financial powerhouse in her own right. They would marry in less than 24 hours, uniting not only their hearts but their considerable portfolios in an alliance that would make them one of New York's most influential couples. Amelia smiled, satisfied with the perfection of the decor, and sent a message to Leo. "Everything is magical here. Can't wait for tomorrow. I love you." The reply was late but arrived. "I love you too, future Mrs. Vance. Work kept me late, but I'm on my way home." She frowned. He was supposed to be at his final suit fitting. It was a minor inconsistency, a dissonant note in her perfectly orchestrated symphony. She filed the thought away, blaming pre-wedding stress. That night, they followed the tradition of sleeping in separate rooms in their vast Upper East Side apartment. "It's bad luck to see the bride," Leo said, kissing her forehead with a breath that smelled of expensive whiskey and something else, something she couldn't quite place. Unable to sleep, Amelia got up to get a glass of water. As she passed the guest room where Leo was, she saw the door ajar and the light from his phone blinking on the nightstand. Curiosity, or perhaps a primitive intuition, made her stop. She knew his password. They had no secrets, or so she thought. What she saw was not a text message, but a notification from a photo-sharing app, one of those that erase content after it's viewed. The contact's name was Kay. Amelia's heart began to pound against her ribs. With trembling fingers, she opened it. The image hit her like a punch to the gut. It was Leo. Unmistakably Leo. He wore nothing but the smug smile she knew so well. And he was not alone. A red-haired woman was with him, her head thrown back in silent laughter. The photo was explicit, intimate, and worst of all, the digital clock on the back wall read 7:42 p.m. The exact time he was supposed to be at his suit fitting. Below the photo, a short, devastating caption: "Your fiancé forgot his tie. Tell him I'll return it tomorrow, at the ceremony." The air left Amelia's lungs. The luxurious apartment suddenly felt cold and cavernous. The sound of blood pulsing in her ears was the only noise in the deadly silence. For a moment, she thought she would scream, break something, confront him. But then, something colder and more ancient than rage took over. It was the same calculating instinct that had made her a legend on Wall Street. The pain was there, a raw, throbbing wound in her chest, but she packaged it up, locking it in a steel safe in her mind. The pain could wait. Vengeance could not. Silently, she closed Leo's phone and put it back in its place. She returned to her room, but not to bed. She went to her desk where her laptop sat next to a stack of wedding documents. Ignoring them, she typed her password and opened a folder on her encrypted hard drive. The folder's name was Contingency. Inside, there were meticulously organized files, copies of the prenuptial agreement, asset valuations, shell company structures, and a document she herself had drafted with her lawyer months ago, titled Partnership Dissolution and Asset Transfer Agreement. The morning of the wedding dawned gray and damp, the New York sky promising the rain that had held off the night before. In the presidential suite of the St. Regis Hotel, chaos was controlled. Makeup artists and hairstylists floated around Amelia like orbiting satellites, while her bridesmaids, dressed in silk robes, laughed and drank champagne. At the center of it all, Amelia was an island of unsettling calm, her face, being prepared for the radiant bride everyone expected, remained a mask of cold serenity. Chloe, her maid of honor and best friend since business school, watched her with growing concern. "Are you okay, Amy? You're too quiet," she whispered, brushing a lock of hair from Amelia's face. Amelia met Chloe's eyes in the mirror. Without a word, she picked up her phone and showed her friend the photo that had become the epicenter of her new reality. Chloe's reaction was the one Amelia had not allowed herself to have. Shock turned into horror, and horror into protective fury. "That bastard!" she hissed, her hands clenching into fists. "It's over. I'm going downstairs right now and sending everyone home. I'll tell your mom. I'll call the police. No." Amelia's voice cut through the air, firm and low, but with a weight that silenced the room. "You will do nothing. The ceremony is going to happen exactly as planned." Chloe looked at her as if she had gone mad. "Amelia, you can't marry him. Not after this." "I'm not going to marry him," Amelia clarified, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "I'm going to dismantle him." It was at that moment that David Chen, Amelia's lawyer, arrived. A man in his 50s, with a flawless suit and an aura of discreet competence, he carried a black leather briefcase. He greeted the other women with a polite nod before addressing Amelia. "The documents are ready and notarized," he said in a low voice. "The material infidelity clause, as stipulated in Section 7B of the prenup, has been activated. The transfer of his assets in the real estate co-venture to your exclusively owned entity is ready to be signed." He paused, his professional gaze softening for a split second. "Amelia, this is a scorched earth strategy. Once you go down this path—" "The path was already chosen for me, David," she replied. "He just doesn't know it yet." Meanwhile, a few blocks away, Leo was adjusting his bow tie, the same style as the tie that was now in the possession of another woman. He was exultant, the slight hangover drowned out by adrenaline. His best man, Mark, slapped him on the back. "You did it, man. You snagged the queen of the castle. Think about it. No more worries about quarterly bonuses or that SEC investigation into Dalton Corp." Leo laughed, but there was a hint of nervousness in his laugh. "The SEC investigation is just a rumor, but it was more than that. It was a real threat, one that could end his career and his fortune." Marrying Amelia was not just a romantic move, it was his insurance policy. Her wealth and reputation would insulate him from any financial storm. He needed her. His arrogance, the night before, had been a stupid mistake, an unnecessary risk. But he was confident he could fix anything. After all, he was Leo Vance. Amelia, however, was already 3 steps ahead. As she put on her diamond earrings, a gift from Leo, her mind was on Katerina Volkov, an ambitious analyst at Blackwood Capital, the rival firm that was competing with hers for the same clean energy technology fund. Leo's betrayal suddenly seemed less like a personal slip-up and more like a calculated move in a corporate chess game. Katerina didn't want Leo. She wanted to destabilize Amelia on the most important day of her public life. A shaken bride makes mistakes. A failed merger could mean billions for Blackwood. Katerina had underestimated her opponent. She hadn't counted on Amelia not being shaken. She counted on tears, not on war tactics. Amelia stood up, the wedding dress falling around her. In a cascade of silk and lace, she was the picture of bridal perfection. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't see a bride. She saw an executive about to close the most hostile deal of her life. The pain was still there, a black hole in her chest, but she had turned it into fuel. Love had been the initial investment. The betrayal was just a breach of contract, and she was about to collect the penalty. She picked up her phone and made a call. It was almost 2 a.m. "David," she said, her voice firm without a hint of a tremor. "It's Amelia. Red folder protocol. It's a go. Be at the Sky Garden at 9 a.m. with the finalized versions. Yes, all of them. And David, bring your notary seal. The wedding is happening. It's just that the terms of the contract have changed." The walk down the aisle was a gauntlet of glances. On one side, Amelia's clan, old New York money, discreet and evaluative. On the other, Leo's group. The new Wall Street money, louder, flashier, with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. In the middle of them all, Amelia walked, her arm in her father's, a man whose expression was a mixture of pride and a slight unease. He felt his daughter's unnatural calm. "Are you all right, darling?" he whispered, squeezing her hand. "You seem distant." "I've never been more present," she replied, her voice soft but with an undertone of steel that made him draw back. When she reached the altar, Leo greeted her, his face lit up with smug relief. He had succeeded. The finish line was inches away. He leaned in to whisper, "You look stunning. I'm the luckiest man in the world." Amelia just gave him an enigmatic smile. Her eyes weren't on him. They were scanning the first row on his side, and there she was, Katerina Volkov. In an emerald green dress that stood out aggressively among the pastel tones of the other guests, she met Amelia's gaze and offered a tiny, triumphant smile. It was an acknowledgement, a declaration of victory. Katerina believed she had planted a time bomb in her rival's heart. She didn't know that Amelia had already disarmed it and was about to detonate it in her lap. On the other side of the aisle, Chloe twisted the bouquet in her hands, cold sweat running down her back. With every step Amelia took, Chloe's heart beat faster. She looked at David, the lawyer, who was discreetly positioned near a column, looking like just another guest. He gave Chloe an almost imperceptible nod. The team was in position. The ceremony began. The officiant, a gentle-voiced man, hired for his poetic reputation, spoke of union, trust, and the journey of two souls. Each word was a knife twisting in Amelia's chest, but her face remained impassive. She was a statue of a bride, beautiful and stone. Leo squeezed her hand, oblivious to the tension radiating from her. To him, everything was going perfectly. He saw tears in his mother's eyes, his father's proud smile, and felt the validation of his whole world. He was about to become untouchable. Katerina's presence was the final piece of Amelia's puzzle. It wasn't just a betrayal driven by lust. It was a corporate execution, a two-front attack, emotional and professional. Katerina wanted to rattle Amelia so she would make a mistake on the clean energy deal. Leo, in turn, needed Amelia's financial security to survive the SEC investigation. They were two parasites trying to feed on the same host, and the host was about to release the poison. The time pressure was suffocating. Every second the officiant spoke brought Amelia closer to the moment of truth. She could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, each with its own expectation. Her future in-laws, in particular, watched her with poorly disguised greed. At a reception the week before, Leo's mother, a woman sculpted by plastic surgery and social ambition, had said to Amelia, "You are the best merger my son has ever made." The phrase, meant as a compliment, now sounded like a confession of a crime. The subplot of Leo's greed and Katerina's sabotage was about to collide. Amelia had spent the pre-dawn hours not just planning her revenge, but connecting the dots. A quick search of financial databases revealed that Blackwood Capital, Katerina's firm, had recently taken a massive short position against Dalton Corp., the same company where Leo's trades were being investigated by the SEC. It was no coincidence. Katerina wasn't just having an affair with Leo. She was likely using him, maybe even blackmailing him, for insider information, while simultaneously sabotaging the wedding to destabilize her company's main competitor. Leo, in his arrogance and desperation, had become entangled in a web fair, larger than he imagined. While the officiant spoke, Amelia's mind worked. Revenge was no longer just about a broken heart. It was about protecting her empire, her reputation, and her future. It was about justice on a scale no one in that rooftop garden could have foreseen. The plan was risky. Exposing everything publicly could create a scandal that would splash back on her, too. The New York business world was ruthless. But a contained attack would not be enough. The betrayal had been audacious. The response had to be legendary. She needed to change the narrative from betrayed victim to master strategist. Her gaze met Chloe's again. Her friend, though terrified, gave her a firm nod. It was the sign that the slideshow, now loaded with a single damning file, was ready on the laptop connected to the projector. the projector that was supposed to show a romantic montage of them. The irony was delicious. All the pieces were in place. The pressure was not breaking her. It was forging her into a diamond. And now, the officiant said, turning to the groom, Leo, would you like to share your vows? Leo turned to Amelia, his face a portrait of rehearsed devotion. He took both her hands. Amelia, he began, his voice resonating with manufactured sincerity. From the moment I saw you, I knew. I knew that my life wasn't about closing deals or the next big investment. It was about finding my true north. You are my north, my safe harbor, my soulmate. I promise to honor you, love you, protect you for all the days of my life. A murmur of approval ran through the guests. The words were perfect. Amelia felt one last spasm of pain, the ghost of the woman she was 24 hours ago, the woman who would have cried with joy at those words. But the ghost dissipated, leaving behind only the cold clarity of the present. Thank you, Leo. Those were beautiful words, she said, her voice clear and firm, carrying over the expectant silence. The officiant smiled. And now, Amelia, your vows. Amelia released Leo's hands and took a slight step to the side, turning to face not the groom, but the guests. A chill of confusion ran through the audience. Leo frowned. Before I share my vows, Amelia began, her voice calm but with a power that demanded attention, I'd like to make a brief announcement about the business merger this marriage represents. After all, as many of you know, in our world, a marriage is as much a contract as it is a celebration. The silence became heavy, uncomfortable. Smiles froze on faces. A fundamental principle of any successful partnership is trust, transparency, fidelity. It turns out, I learned last night that my partner here does not share those values. Leo's jaw dropped. Panic flashed in his eyes. Amelia, what kind of joke is this? Amelia ignored him, her gaze sweeping the crowd until it landed on Katerina Volkov. I learned, for example, that my fiancé's fidelity has a shelf life of less than 24 hours before our wedding. Specifically with Ms. Katerina Volkov, who has generously joined us today. In the front row. All eyes turned to Katerina, whose face went from a ghostly white to a mottled red in seconds. Katerina, Amelia continued, her voice sharp as broken glass, I believe you have my fiancé's tie. A gasp came from Leo's mother. Amelia's father stepped forward protectively, but Amelia raised a hand to stop him. She was in control. The chaos was her stage. Leo, stuttering, finally found his voice. This is absurd. She's lying. Amelia, you're stressed. You don't know what you're saying. Amelia's composure was terrifying. I am perfectly lucid, she said, and then she delivered the final blow. Chloe, darling, would you mind showing everyone the romantic montage we prepared? Chloe, with a trembling but determined nod, pressed a key on her laptop. The giant screen behind the altar, which moments before had displayed an elegant A and L monogram, flickered and then lit up with a single high-definition image. The photo of Leo and Katerina, explicit, undeniable, with the digital clock reading 7:42 p.m. A collective gasp of shock emanated from the crowd. The humiliation was total, public, and absolute. Leo looked from the screen to Amelia, his face a mask of horror and disbelief. Katerina tried to stand and flee, but she was paralyzed, trapped by the stares of hundreds of people. As I said, Amelia spoke into the microphone, her voice cutting through the chaos. A breach of trust. However, I am a businesswoman, and I never let a crisis go to waste. She turned to Leo, whose protests died in his throat. According to Section 7B of our prenuptial agreement, which you signed on March 14th, a material breach of contract due to proven infidelity triggers the penalty clause. This clause stipulates the immediate and full transfer of your 50% stake in our real estate joint venture, Vance Hayes Properties, to my exclusive holding entity. She paused, letting the information sink in. Fortunately for us, our officiant, Mr. Albright, is not only a poet, but also a licensed New York State public notary. David? As if stepping out of the shadows, David Chen came forward, opening his leather briefcase. He placed a multi-page document and a luxury pen on a small table next to the altar. Amelia looked at Leo, her eyes devoid of any emotion except for a frosty determination. Sign, Leo. You're crazy, he spat, rage now replacing shock. I'm not signing anything. Ah, but you will, Amelia said softly. She leaned close to him, her whisper heard only by him. Because the next image Chloe is going to show on that screen is not a photo. It's a copy of the anonymous email I sent to the SEC this morning detailing every fraudulent transaction you made at Dalton Corp. With receipts. Sign the paper, and you only lose your money. Don't sign, and you will spend the next 10 to 15 years in federal prison. The blood drained from Leo's face. He looked at Amelia and for the first time saw her not as his beautiful bride or his lottery ticket, but as the enforcer of his ruin. This was the true turning point, not just of the ceremony, but of Amelia's life. The challenge was no longer just to expose a traitor. It was to force him to be the author of his own downfall. The woman who had meticulously planned a wedding for love was now coldly executing the dissolution of a man on principle. Leo looked around frantically, searching for an ally, a way out, but there was none. His parents were petrified with shame. His friends, the Wall Street sharks, watched with morbid fascination, recognizing an alpha predator when they saw one. And it was not Leo. He turned to Amelia, his arrogance finally broken, replaced by pathetic desperation. Amelia, please, don't do this. I love you. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. Love was not in our prenuptial agreement, Leo, but fidelity was, she replied, her voice unwavering. She pointed the pen at him. Time is running out. What's it going to be? Your company or your freedom? Amelia's transformation was complete. Her pain had not disappeared, but she had harnessed it, turning it from a paralyzing weakness into a source of relentless strength. She was not yelling or crying. She was not being emotional. She was conducting a hostile transaction with the precision of a surgeon. She was not lowering herself to his level. She was rising above his ruins. With a hand trembling uncontrollably, Leo took the pen. The silence in the rooftop garden was absolute. The only sound was the frantic scratching of the pen on the paper as he signed page after page, signing his financial surrender, signing the end of his life as he knew it. When he finished, he threw the pen onto the table. David picked up the documents, reviewed the signatures, and then, with a satisfying and final thud, pressed his notary seal on each one. It is legal and binding, he announced clearly. The transfer was complete. Amelia showed no triumph. She just observed the process with a calculated distance. She had moved past the need for his emotional validation. What she needed was contractual justice, and she had obtained it. With the signed document safely in David's hands, the subplots began to resolve themselves quickly. Katerina Volkov, seeing her career and reputation evaporating before her eyes, finally tried to slip away discreetly. But two discreet but imposing security guards, hired by Amelia, blocked her path. Ms. Volkov, one of them said, his voice polite but firm. Ms. Hayes has a message for you. She knows about your company's involvement with the SEC tip-off and the short position against Dalton. Expect a subpoena for tortious interference with contract on Monday. Your lawyers will be hearing from Blackwood's lawyers. Katerina's face crumbled. She had not just failed in her mission. She had started a war with an adversary she was not prepared for, and she was about to be annihilated. Amelia, in turn, picked up the microphone again. The climax was not Leo's signature. It was the rewriting of her own story, right there, in front of everyone. She looked at her parents, who now watched her with an astonishment that was turning into immense pride. They saw the strength they had always known she possessed. She turned to the guests, who remained in fascinated silence. The tension was electric. They had come for a wedding and were witnessing a coronation. My sincere apologies to everyone, Amelia said, her voice resonating with a new authority. I apologize for this unconventional ceremony. The truth sometimes is an unwelcome guest at celebrations. But I ask that you not let this spoil your evening. The bar is open, the champagne is first rate, and the canapes are delicious. Please enjoy the party. Consider it a celebration of truth and good business decisions. A nervous laugh, then a louder one, rippled through the crowd. The tension broke, replaced by an astonished respect. Leo remained at the altar, a pathetic figure in his expensive tuxedo, a king dethroned in his own ruined castle. But Amelia was not yet finished. Here was the surprising twist, the move no one expected. It was not just about revenge, it was about building. She raised her own glass of champagne. And since we're in a celebratory mood, I'd like to propose a toast, she said loudly, a toast to my newest business acquisition and to the launch of a new venture. All eyes were on her. Some of you know I've been working on a side project, a fund to support female entrepreneurs who are often underestimated and underfunded in this industry. I plan to launch it next year. However, thanks to a sudden and very generous influx of assets from a now silent donor, she made a vague gesture in Leo's direction, and a shiver of comprehension ran through the crowd. I am pleased to announce that the Hayes Foundation for Women in Business is, as of this moment, officially open and fully funded. The shock turned into applause. First from her father, then from Chloe, and then it spread like wildfire across the terrace. They were not just applauding the downfall of a man, they were applauding the birth of a legacy. Amelia had taken the shards of her personal humiliation and forged them not into a sword, but into a shield for others. She didn't just win, she changed the game. The transformation was complete. She was no longer a bride, a victim, or even an avenger. She was a founder, a queen. Leo Vance was completely erased, not by hatred, but by the magnitude of her constructive ambition. He became a footnote in the story of her triumph. The transfer ceremony, as it became known on Wall Street, became an instant legend. The story spread faster than any market report. Amelia Hayes was no longer just a brilliant investment partner. She was an icon of strategic power and cool resilience. The consequences for the others were swift and brutal. Leo, stripped of his main assets and without the protective shield of the Hayes name, was devoured by the SEC investigation. His career was over, his reputation was destroyed, and his family became social pariahs. Katerina was summarily fired from Blackwood Capital, which quickly settled with Amelia's lawyers to avoid a public and ugly lawsuit for corporate espionage. Amelia, however, did not stay to savor the carnage. The next day, while gossip set New York on fire, she was on a plane to a remote and unnamed location where there was no cell service. She spent 2 weeks walking, reading, and allowing herself to feel the pain she had kept in check. She cried, for the love she thought she had, for the trust that was broken. And then she let it go. When she returned to New York, she was not hardened, but integrated. The experience had not broken her. It had made her whole. She returned to her office with a new clarity and purpose. The Hayes Foundation became her passion project, and its success was meteoric, helping dozens of female-led startups get the funding they deserved. She became more powerful, more respected, and more authentic than she had ever been. She looked at the Manhattan skyline from her window, the same view as the night of the betrayal, but now she saw not a city of threats, but a kingdom of possibilities that she herself had built. A year later, Amelia was at a gala for her foundation. A young engineer whose clean tech company had just received funding approached her. Ms. Hayes, your story, what you did, is an inspiration. Do you ever think about that day? Amelia smiled, a genuine and serene smile that reached her eyes. Every day, she replied. That was the day I finally married my one true life partner, myself. Betrayal can break a heart, but it doesn't have to break a person's spirit or future. Amelia's story is a visceral reminder of the power we possess to take the darkest moments and turn them into our greatest triumphs, rewriting the terms of our own life contracts. It's not about revenge, but about rebirth. What did you think of this journey of pain, power, and self-discovery? Does the way Amelia turned her tragedy into a legacy inspire any reflection in you? Share your thoughts on this story of a woman who refused to be a victim and instead became a legend.